So a lot of our tickets lately have been around VPNs and them not working and stuff like that. And my application is no longer starting afterwards and blah, blah, blah. So this video is going to be covering that to hopefully solve like 90% of those questions. It's going to be split up into 3 different parts. The first part is just going to be the introduction and talking about Wireguard versus OpenVPN and stuff like that. And then also talk about the things that you need to do before you get in your configuration for either one of those. So the very first thing that we're going to do is launch an application that you might want to use a VPN on. I'm just going to skip absolutely everything. Let me zoom out so I can actually see what's going on. Okay, I'll zoom back in just for this part. We're going to skip this part for right now. So I didn't really need to zoom in, but we're going to skip that part for right now because you want to make sure that your application is actually working before you put a VPN on it. You don't want to add complexity to something that you don't even know if it's going to work in the first place. We've had a lot of people open support tickets. They're like, hey, my VPN isn't working and stuff like that. And then that's all the information they give us. And then we find out later that none of their networking is working. So make sure that your networking is actually working before you add any more complexity to it. So we're going to wait until this launches. And while we're waiting, I want to discuss the difference between OpenVPN and WireGuard. OpenVPN seems to be a little bit more complex than WireGuard is to deploy. At least you need a username and password and stuff like that, whereas WireGuard you just need the configuration file, and the configuration file for WireGuard is incredibly easy, whereas for OpenVPN it's not as easy. There sometimes is a lot more certificates and stuff like that you have to try to understand, and it's just kind of a pain. And there's a current bug out there where if you have, we'll just open this up real quick. Where if you have OpenVPN and additional storage at the same time, sometimes for whatever reason, if you're using OpenVPN, your additional storage will not show up. This is an open ticket, so you don't have to throw in your own ticket or anything like that. We're working on solving this right now. But WireGuard does not have that issue, and it's a lot more simple. So my recommendation on providers will just be either Mulvad if you need port forwarding, or Azar VPN. It's like $5 a month, but you don't get port forwarding. So if you actually plan on seeding back, which I do recommend, it's not a good idea to go with Azar VPN because they don't allow port forwarding on their servers. Okay, so first thing that we're going to do is go and click on shell after our application launched. And then we'll go ahead and type in curl ip.me. And we'll go ahead and hit enter afterwards. It should come back with your WAN IP. Obviously, I didn't press enter because I don't want to dox myself. And then we'll open this application as well. It's going to say unauthorized. That's fine. Go into the bar and press enter. It just doesn't like redirects. That's why it does that. And the username is admin, and then the password is admin. So just admin twice. Okay. And then we'll just try installing we'll download some sort of like Linux file or something like that. So go ahead and try doing that. Make sure it actually works. After you do that and you verify that it did work, we're going to go to storage and create our 3 data sets that we're going to be needing. So as you can see here, I only have one pool. So I just have a tank, and then I created a data set right here called VPN. I'll go ahead and show you the permissions. This is the exact permissions that I used. You might want to add a different group or user if you want to use your Samba user, because depending on how you're going to transfer your configuration files to your server, because you do need to do that at some point, obviously, you need to make sure that your user has the correct permission to do that. So it might be a good idea to temporarily just allow other or pretty much everybody just to read, write, and execute. Well, I guess they don't need execute, but to at least read and write, just so you can get those configuration files onto there. I don't do that. I just added my Samba user to the apps group, and then after you get done doing that, you'll just go ahead and click here, apply. I always click apply cursively, and then you can also apply provisions to child datasets if you have any child datasets. Which in this case we do have 2 child datasets. I parse these 2 out, or separate these 2 out. So I have VPN as my parent dataset, and then OpenVPN as my child dataset, and then Wireguard as my child dataset. So after you do that, now we just need to get into configuring our stuff. So we'll go here, and we're going to be configuring OpenVPN first. So this is going to be the OpenVPN part of the video. So I'll go to video content and show off my OpenVPN file. Go vim OpenVPN, open this up, because the way that they give us the configuration files, they're usually not ready by default. So we'll go ahead and come down here, and you'll see these 2 lines. I added these 2 in myself. Pull filter ignore IP config IPv6, and pull filter ignore route IPv6. And the reason I added this is because the sidecar can't handle IPv6 anyway, and I don't think any of the applications can handle IPv6, so there's no reason to use this. So we just put in these 2, and I'll leave this in the video description as well, is pull filter ignore IPv6, and then pull filter ignore route IPv6. So that's just going to ignore anything that has to do with IPv6. Without this, I've had some users with their applications just not launching and stuff like that, and it doesn't hurt it to put this in, just in case if there is something, it's just going to simply ignore it, right? And that should be pretty much all you have to do to get your connection working. If there are anything that has anything to do with IPv6 anywhere in here, as you can see, I don't. I just have this DNS name. I would go ahead and delete it, and that should be it. So we'll go ahead and get out of this. And then of course we'll need to copy this file to our network share. So we'll go ahead and go to that right now. So network. Then we'll go to our VPN. You can see our 2 data sets that we just made. I'm not going to actually go into these folders, because then it's going to show my actual OpenVPN connections and stuff like that I actually plan on using. And those have valid data. It's not just a bunch of scrambled mess that I was showing you earlier. But here's that. As you can see, it is in the correct area, and it's called PIA OVPN. Make sure it does have an OVPN ending. I'm pretty sure that's standard for OpenVPN connections or configuration files. I think they have to be OVPN. I'm not entirely sure about that. You might have to talk to your provider, but any that I came across had this extension. Okay, so after we're done with that, we'll go ahead and kill this. Get back into our apps. We'll go to edit for our QBitTorrent application, because that's the application that we want to add this configuration file to. Choose OpenVPN, and then just go ahead and put in some fake data for right now. Configure kill switch excluded IPv4 networks. We'll go ahead and click add twice to add 2 fields. And then as you can see up here, we'll actually just copy and paste this. Oh, we should include. Okay. So we'll get rid of that. Put a 0 here and put a /24. And then for this one, we'll put it 172.16.0.0.16. So this is my LAN network, because I want to be able to still access QBitTorrent after I spin up this application with a VPN. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to with a kill switch active. And then IPv4 network, this 172. This is your Kubernetes network. If you want to have your applications talking to each other and Sonar to be sending data and whatnot to QBitTorrent, you're going to have to add this in there. Okay, now we just need the file path. So we'll just put in mount tank VPN open VPN, and then we'll put, what was it, pia.ovpn. And then that should be all that you have to do for this. Afterwards, go ahead and come down here and click on save. Okay, so it looks like our application is active. So we'll go ahead and click on shell and we'll run that command that I had you guys run earlier. Make sure that you click on the qubit container because now there's going to be two containers. Because as you remember, OpenVPN is going to be this sidecar container. So go ahead and click on qubit. Then we'll just type in curl the ip.me, and then there's your VPN app or IP. So make sure that that's working. Next, we'll go to open again. Okay, retype in the credentials. Click on this cogwheel, advanced, and then any interface. We're going to change this to ton0. That's your OpenVPN interface now. It's your virtual interface. And then we're also going to click on all IPv4 addresses. After that, we'll go ahead and scroll to the very bottom and click save. And that's pretty much all you have to do. If there were torrents here and now they're saying like it timed out or whatever, go ahead and click right click, and then you'll click on force reannounce or whatever that is. And then it should reestablish the connection with the tracker. Sometimes if they don't connect, I've had this problem with like Molvad, with Naya, and like public trackers and whatnot. I think Naya blocks IP ranges from those specific providers. I haven't had this problem with Azar, but again, with Azar, you can't seed back. So that's a problem with that. So if you're still having like tracker errors where it's saying like, hey, this isn't working, blah, 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 connection timed out, and a force reannounce did not fix that, then they might be blocking your IP range. So after going back to advanced, some other things that you might want to change here is reannounce to all trackers when IP or port is changed. That's good. It's just letting them know like, hey, my VPN provider allocated me a different IP or whatever. Your port shouldn't change, but your IP might. So it's good to have that ticked just in case. And then another one is always announce to all trackers in a tier. This sometimes will help with trackers also saying connection refused and stuff like that if a force reannounce did not work. If you're adding a bunch of torrents and whatnot and it's still not connecting to the trackers that you're wanting it to, this might be a good idea to tick as well. But that should be it. I'm not going to tick it personally because I don't really have that issue. Afterwards, I'll go ahead and click on save. And that's pretty much it for OpenVPN. Okay, so now we're just going to get into the WireGuard configuration. This should be pretty simple. Okay. Just go ahead and open that up in Vim. I'll zoom in here. And this is generally what your WireGuard configuration is going to look like. It might not have this pre-shared key. That's totally fine. Don't worry about that whatsoever. It's just some people have it, so that's why I'm going to put that in here. But as you can see, there's nothing on here that has anything to do with IPv6 anywhere. And that's because I completely took it out. Usually there was a line right after this that had something to do with IPv6, as well as after allowed IPs. There was a line that had something to do with IPv6. So make sure that you delete those because you don't need them. There might have even been something after this address line. Anything that has any sort of ::00 or anything like that, make sure you delete it. You do not need that. That's not what we're going to be using. We're only going to be using IPv4 because it's the only IPv version that's accepted right now. Okay. So after you get done with that, we'll go ahead and open our Chromium back up, and then we'll install qubit. Come here, paste that in there. Don't worry about what I'm doing because I'm going to be skipping next until I get to number 9, which is add-ons. And we'll choose WireGuard this time. Okay, and I will be adding 2 networks to configure kill switch excluded IPv4 networks. We'll be adding my personal LAN network, 24, and then we'll be adding the Kubernetes network. zoom in. I know I'm zooming in kind of a lot, and some people are gonna be like, dude, why are you doing that? But some people watch this like on their phone and stuff, so that's why I'm doing this. But yeah, it should look like this. You should have WireGuard, enable kill switch, and then you should have two networks, one at the very minimum, and that should just be your Kubernetes network. And then after we get done with that, full path to file. This will just be our MNT, tank, VPN, WireGuard. And then for this, I believe I chose, let me see, syncthing.conf. Okay. So syncthing.conf should end in a .conf. And then after you're done with that, go ahead and come down to the bottom and click save. Okay, so it looks like our application is active after we added our VPN configuration to it. So we'll go ahead and click on the three dots and then click shell. Then make sure containers, because now you're going to have two containers. Remember, WireGuard is a sidecar container, so it's going to be in the containers list. Should still only have one pod. So we'll just make sure that our qubit container is chosen. Type curl ip.me. Go ahead and try to zoom in a little bit. And there we go. There is my VPN's IP address. So perfect. And then we got that tested out. We'll come back here and click open on qubit. It's going to say unauthorized. That's fine. Go into the bar and highlight everything and then press enter. It just does not like redirects. That's why it's doing that. So we'll go there, and the username is admin and the password is admin twice. So just admin. Okay. We'll click on this cogwheel, go to advanced, and then network interface. We're going to choose our WireGuard 0. This is our virtual interface. Optional IP address to bind to. We'll go ahead and click on that. And then a couple other things that I like changing is renounce all trackers when IP or port is changed. And then it's also a good idea to sometimes take this if you need to. If your trackers are not connecting or attempting to connect, then it's one of two things. One, and I've had this happen before, they blocked your IP address. So someone is probably abusing them or something like that, using the same IP server that you're using or the VPN server that you're using, and now the IP is blocked. And now that tracker is going to refuse to connect to you. That's the only issue I've ever had with Mulvad, is a lot of their IPs seem to be blocked. I've not had the issue with Azure, but again, with Azure, you do not have port forwarding. So that's the downside of that. But you can go ahead and click on this. I'm not going to because I haven't really had the issue. I've not really had that issue before. And then we'll click on save. And then any trackers that show up that say, or any torrents that show up that say that the connection is refused to the tracker, you can go ahead and right click on them and click on force renounce. That should attempt to reestablish a connection to that tracker. Sometimes it's good to even press stop on the tracker or on the torrent and then press start again and then just keep trying to refresh it that way, and then sooner or later it will connect. And that pretty much concludes the video. The very last thing that we're going to go through is bug tracking. So if you're ever having an issue and you want to open a support ticket, we're going to need a few things. You're going to have to click edit on whatever application you're having issues with. And then you'll have to screenshot all of this. Screenshot literally every piece of this. A lot of people like to leave out information and stuff like that, and then it turns out that, hey, you tried naming your qubit application *XXX Grim Reaper or something like stupid, and then now your application's not launching. So make sure you just include everything, because sometimes people will really, I don't know why, people refuse to send information sometimes, and then it turns out that the information that they refused to send was the problem. So just please just do it. I know it might sound stupid to you, and you're like, dude, I know what I'm doing. Well, it just makes our job a pain in the butt, and it's not really any of our job anyway. Like, we're just doing this to help you out, you know? Afterwards, you also want to go to the logs. And if you have both containers spun up, qubit is going to be your main one, and then you're either going to have WireGuard or OpenVPN or nothing. And you might have nothing if you got stuck on the very first step of this video, which was to get your network working in the first place. Depending on what the issue is, we might be able to help you. But if you do have 2 containers, make sure that you grab the logs for both. But yeah, that'll be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys' configuration got set up and everything is good to go.